Margaret de Cathaoirleach, I had planned to start with something else, but I have to comment on the contribution here by Deputy Jennifer Carroll McNeill tonight. It's quite something else to spend her minutes talking about the Future Ireland Fund and to say this is the most significant thing that any government has done ever in this country, to allow for $4 billion to go into a fund that will each year accumulate 28% of GDP, so that we'll have $100 billion by 2035. And she said, imagine if you were a young person now listening to that, how exciting would your future be? That we would be able to, she said, for example, have commercial offshore wind floating on the west of Ireland and expand the aviation industry. Now, that last sentence says it all for me. Who in their right mind plans for a future by putting commercial offshore wind on your coast instead of state-run, not-for-profit offshore wind, and at the same time says this will help expand the aviation industry? She clearly doesn't understand anything about science and climate. And if that's the future for the young people listening in, I hope more of them will get out and march against this government's climate policy, which is hallmarked by an unsustainable expansion of data centres and the imposition of a cruel carbon tax that's supposed to get them to change their behaviour when they live out in the sticks and have no access to public transport, or indeed they have poorly insulated homes and have to keep the heating on because they're old and cold. For me, that says that this government are really codding themselves. Now, I know all the devil will be in the detail of this budget when it plays out over the next period of time. But you know, like they say, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool them all of the time. Because this budget has utterly failed to deal with the growing crises we have in this country. The crisis in poverty is not once off. It will not be dealt or go away because of once-off payments. And that's what this budget is doing. It's giving the poorest a once-off payment to help them pay off debts that they've accumulated in energy and other bills, medical bills, etc. But it is not dealing with the systemic crisis in poverty. Housing crisis and homelessness is not once off, and this budget has done utterly nothing, zero, to deal with that most shocking crisis in homelessness and housing. In fact, I had some constituents asking me today, I live in a big working class area called Ballyfermot. My constituency is littered with working class areas with second-hand houses, and these people are being excluded from the first-time buyer's allowance if they want to buy a second-hand home. It only applies to new housing. Now, where's the logic in that for a whole swathe of people who live in our city? To deal with the crisis in climate, I've commented on what I could not believe my ears hearing that was said by the Minister earlier on about how we deal with it into the future. It is just incredible, and it's incredible tomfoolery to think that that's what's going to happen. Making out that we can rely on some far-flung, that doesn't exist, technology into the future, and then all of a sudden, in 2035, we'll all have a great life. Well, that's 12 years' time, and I can tell you, the pensioners who today may got a €12 increase, who Social Justice Ireland and the figures produced today by the CSO show that their income will be down minus 5.2% because of the lack of attention being paid to their poverty and the choices that they have to make in life between food and heating, etc. We all know about them. But these choices are being made while profiteering and price gouging continues, particularly, for example, in groceries. There's statistics here by Social Justice Ireland to show us that something like 95% of the people are worried about the impact of rising food prices. Now, when we discussed this before, a few months ago in this House, Minister Neil Richmond ran off to have a showdown with the supermarket bosses. What happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Prices have continued to rise, as have profits. And indeed, food inflation is running at 12.2% at the moment, the biggest concern for most ordinary workers. And some of them, many of them, are women. And this budget has done nothing to address the crisis of low pay in women because of the type of gender-based jobs that they mainly do. So women earning between 15 and €20 an hour will get nothing. People who are better paid, who are higher paid, like me, for example, will have a permanent fix in my income so that I don't have to pay more. But the ICTU today pointed out that a nurse working overtime will pay more taxes on her income than a landlord earning the same amount of money on a passive income from rent that he doesn't have to do anything with. So I believe this budget is a shocking disregard for the long-term crises that we have in this country, and it has failed utterly to deal with them. We will see, as I say, the devil will be in the detail over the next few months, and we will see what has come out. But most of all, it is ignoring poverty and homelessness among children. And at the same time, Jennifer Carroll MacNeill says to those children, oh, wait till 2035 and you'll have windmills and more aviation. What in the name of God sort of rhetoric is that to put before people who live day to day in cruel crises, in homelessness, in poverty, in struggling to get their kids to school, to keep them in school, where they have to have hot meals or go to food banks? Wake up and smell the coffee, because this is an outrageous treatment of people when we've never, ever before had as much money in the coffers.